All right, Jeff, I know it's still technically November, but here in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, it already feels like winter.
Yeah.
Jack Frost is more than nipping at my nose, I tell you. He's biting.
Ray, I get it. I had the chance to hike a bunch of the White Mountains 2 years ago when I was training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
Conditions can change up here in an instant, but this is my first time on Mount Chocorua.
That's a funny name. I like that.
Yeah.
But I wonder how a place like this got the label Chocorua. Still, it's a gorgeous view of central New Hampshire up here, but man, is it cold.
Well, maybe it's not the cold that's giving you chills, Ray.
Okay.
Maybe it's something a little more sinister.
All right, what do you mean?
Well, they say Mount Chocorua is cursed. I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 67 of the New England Legends podcast.
Woohoo!
If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
And me? I'm Ray Auger.
Yes, you are.
We're on a mission to chronicle every legend in New England, 1 week and one story at a time. It's been 67 consecutive weeks, and we haven't missed one yet.
Not a one.
Knock on wood. A lot of people ask us where we get the ideas for these stories. More and more, they're coming from you, our legendary listeners.
That's true. We're trying to build a community of curiosity seekers here. People who understand that great things happen when we share our history and our legends.
That's right. So stay involved with us, please. Tell a friend or two about the show. Subscribe to the podcast. It's free. Why wouldn't you? Join our super secret Facebook group or call or text our legend line anytime. It's 617-444-9683.
And we also appreciate the support of all of our Patreon patrons who get early access to new episodes and bonus episodes that no one else gets to hear. It's just $3 a month.
That's it.
And you can find out more at our website, which is ournewenglandlegends.com.
All right, Jeff. So you're saying Mount Chocorua is cursed.
That's the story.
All right, I know the mountain itself is iconic. At 3,490 feet at its peak, it's far from the tallest summit in the White Mountain Range. But it's easy to spot because of its bald, rocky top that's visible from all over central New Hampshire.
Well, that bald, rocky top just ahead of us is so iconic, it's been recognized by gumball machines across the United States.
What?
Check this out.
All right, it's a quarter.
Okay, check out the other side.
Oh, cool. In 2013, the U.S. Mint issued a New Hampshire state coin honoring the White Mountains, and they put the engraving of Mount Chocorua on the back.
Technically, Mount Washington is the tallest peak in not just the White Mountains of New Hampshire, but all of New England.
Right.
But I guess putting that on the back of the quarter would have been kind of overdoing it.
Ah, yes, because George Washington is on the front.
Exactly. But hold on to that quarter.
Okay.
We may need it later.
Got it. All right, let's set up this curse.
This legend begins in the earlier colonial days. Let's call it about 1720, in a place just south of here that today is known as the town of Tamworth, New Hampshire. Chocorua was a Sokosis Indian chief who got along with his European neighbors.
Which itself is quite a thing, considering that just a few decades earlier, the King Philip's War ravaged the Native American population in southern New England.
Now, that war and its toll weighed heavily on the hearts and minds of other Sokosis Indians, but still, Chocorua knew there were individual colonists that he could trust.
Now, one of the people Chocorua did trust was a settler named Cornelius Campbell and his family.
Right.
The men traded with each other and got along pretty good. Both of them liked each other until something bad happened.
One day, Chocorua was called on some tribal business that would keep him away for several days. So Chocorua asked Cornelius Campbell if he and his family would watch his young son while he was away. Well, of course, Mr. Campbell agreed to look after his friend's son for a few days.
Chocorua's son wasn't used to being in the house among settlers. He was more accustomed to a hunting and gathering life.
Yeah.
So when the Campbells left him alone in the house while they went out to tend to their farm and fields, they couldn't have anticipated that the young boy would get himself into trouble.
But that trouble did come in the form of a bottle of fox poison.
Uh-oh.
The boy was curious about the liquid. He'd watched other colonists drink liquid from bottles, so he tried it for himself, not understanding that what's inside could kill him. When Cornelius Campbell came in from his chores, he found Chocorua's son's lifeless body on the floor. He was devastated.
When the Sokosis chief learned of his son's death, he snapped. In a rage of fury, he grabs a hatchet and storms through Campbell's house, murdering his wife and children.
Campbell flies into his own rage and soon gathers up neighbors ready to hunt down Chocorua and bring him to some forest justice.
The colonists chase Chocorua through the woods, heading north towards this one lone peak. Through the forest, up the hill, blind with rage, Campbell chases his former friend. They scramble and hurtle higher and higher up this mountain until they can't climb any higher. Seeing his only two options are to face down Cornelius Campbell's rifle or jump from the top of this mountain, he decides to end his life on his own terms. But not before Chocorua lays a curse upon the men and the mountain.
A curse upon ye, white men. May the Great Spirit curse ye when he speaks in the clouds, and his words are fire. Chocorua had a son, and ye killed him while the sky looked bright. Lightning blast your crops, wind and fire destroy your dwellings. The evil spirit breathe death upon your cattle. Your graves lie in the warpath of the Indian. Panthers howl and wolves fatten over your bones. Chocorua goes to the Great Spirit. His curse stays with the white men.
Cornelius Campbell fires his rifle, just as Chocorua leaps from the ledge, falling to his doom. It's a black day for the region. Campbell's family is dead. Chocorua and his son are dead. There's no satisfaction in the chief's demise.
After Campbell and the other men walk home, Chocorua's curse quickly got to work. This mountain became barren.
Wow.
The trees at the top died and the soil slipped away, leaving it bald and rocky. No farm could succeed on the slopes of this mountain. And even the animals abandoned this place for greener woods. And the cattle who drank water near the mountain, they mysteriously died in great numbers.
In short, the settlers took this curse seriously, and they avoided the mountain. And that reputation survives to this day, which brings us back to the cold slopes of Mount Chocorua.
Okay, I have so many questions, Jeff.
Okay, please, fire away.
All right, how do we know if this is all true, for one thing?
In short, we really don't know for sure. The name of the mountain, Chocorua, shows up on a 1791 map, so we know by that year locals were already referring to this place by that name. The tales turn up in different books, including the 1828 journal of painter Thomas Cole, who heard about the execution of the Indian chief at the summit. But there was one author who really propelled the story into the mainstream, and that was in 1829.
All right.
In fact, it's from her story that we take the direct quote of Chocorua's curse, which we heard a little bit earlier. This is an author that our regular listeners will know.
Who?
Are you ready?
Yeah?
It's Lydia Maria Child.
Wait, that's two Lydia Maria Child legends 2 weeks in a row?
I know, right?
But still, Mount Chocorua isn't the only bald mountaintop in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Mount Monadnock in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, has a bald rocky top, and it's not that tall either.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying bald mountaintops in New Hampshire happen.
Okay, I agree with that. It does happen, and sometimes we look to legends for the reason. But then I found this old newspaper article from July 19th, 1955. Go ahead and read the headline, Ray.
All right, it says, "Move to rename Mount Chocorua to end curse stirs up battle." No way.
Representative William T. Robertson said in an interview he wants to rename the mountain Mount Eisenhower after the president because, quote, "It's one of the most beautiful mountains in New Hampshire. If we change the mountain's name, we might get rid of the legend."
Oh, Representative Robertson. If only you listen to our podcast, you'd know you can't get rid of legends that easily.
No, you can't. And the article goes on to describe how cattle from the Albany and Burton areas of New Hampshire were plagued by cattle disease. The cattle would die for no apparent reason. And locally, the disease became known as Burton Ale. But others suspected it was no virus. They believed it was Chocorua's curse.
All right, so what do you think happened here?
As with most legends, I believe there's some nugget of truth here. As we know, the story changes and varies with each telling, but the part about Chocorua meeting his death at the summit is always the same. And enough people knew the story in the 1700s to actually name the mountain after him.
Checking a local map, I can see they also named a nearby lake after him, and a river, and even a village within the town of Tamworth. And that bothers me.
Well, how so?
Well, why name a lake, river, village, and mountain after a man you believe was a murderer?
Oh, okay.
We usually name points on a map after people who did great things, not someone who we believe is a murderer.
Well, it's so easy to look at history through our modern lens. There was a time when you might name a location as a warning to others. This mountain, its name and story, it served as a warning to colonists in the mid-1700s. Don't trust the Indians. Don't be their friends. It won't end well because we're just too different.
It's such a sad way to look at it.
Yeah, it kind of is. And it's a dark tale that's almost gone except for a mountain in central New Hampshire with a funny-sounding name that makes us ask the question, how did this place get that moniker?
And finding that answer allows us to explore how tragic some of our early history was, complete with cultural misunderstandings and murder. I'm glad they never renamed the mountain.
Ready for one more strange connection with this mountain?
Tell me.
Well, you may remember back in episode 47, we visited the Ruth Colbath house in Albany, New Hampshire.
Of course I remember that. A woman who waited for decades for her husband to return.
Well, maybe you can use that New Hampshire quarter I gave you to call the Colbath House Museum and ask them to read you Ruth's 1930 obituary, because it mentions how the old girl lived in defiance of Chocorua's curse right there at the base of the mountain that bears his name.
I'm not sure payphones still exist, Jeff. That's a legend into itself, right?
You might be right.
You could keep the quarter.
All right.
But you legendary listeners can call or text us anytime on our legend line at 617-444-9683. We love hearing from you.
And we'd like to thank Dave Schrader from Darkness Radio and Midnight in the Desert for lending his voice acting talents this week. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.